Hey, what's up everybody, this is me24, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Avengers Endless Wartime original graphic novel. This is a standalone storyline that they made for the Marvel hardcover releases, similar to the Thanos Infinity Revelation graphic novel that I reviewed earlier. This is a story that focuses on a few key members of the Avengers as setting up the backstory for everything, but it does a really good job of sort of balancing who gets to see the spotlight when. It does a pretty good job of balancing out the members that are in this version of the Avengers. And there's sort of this sort of old school meets new school combination of characters in there. So basically the story starts off with Cap hearing about these sort of murmurs of old Hydra related group that he knew of, and sort of the members that were part of that. And there's this war happening, and I don't remember if it was a real country or some made-up country that they did for the sake of Marvel Comics, but some country where these rebels are fighting, and they shoot down this weird alien jet thing. And by alien jet, I don't mean it's like a weird spaceship-looking thing. I mean it's like this weird alien thing that has rocket boosters on its arms, and it just falls in the middle of their war-torn city. And Cap recognizes some of the tech that's associated with that. At the same time, Thor recognizes that there is a connection there to an old beast, Nidhogg, which he fought long time ago and thought he had done away with. Well, apparently it came to Earth in some form and spawned off these little babies that were then fused with the tech. And so you have these basically monster machine things flying around. And they were supposed to be kept in secret, but obviously they got out, and now it's the Avengers' job to go clean it up. The great thing about this story is that S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of mentioned, but they're not really that prominent, and it's sort of the Avengers going against what they're supposed to do. They get orders at one point to, stand down, to let somebody else deal with this, and they're like, no, this is our Cap and Thor both feel like this is their score to settle, so they have to go out of their way to take care of it. The artwork here in the front, I think, is really great. It's got, a very simply stated image, but I think it serves the purpose well. On the back, same sort of thing. Explanation of what the story is, and I like that rounded text going around the Avengers symbol there. I think that's pretty cool. But the team that we have here, like I mentioned, it's sort of old school meets new school, and we have, obviously, Iron Man and Captain America. We have Wolverine and Black Widow. We have Captain Marvel and Hawkeye. And that might be obviously Thor. And then Hulk joins in a little bit later. So that's the core team that we have. What's great about that is because typically the main team is, Cap, Thor, Iron Man, Hulk, sometimes Black Widow and Hawkeye. Wolverine is interesting because he's, such a rebel, typically speaking. He kind of does his own thing, doesn't necessarily play as, a team member sometimes. And it's interesting to see him kind of butt heads with Captain America a little bit, in that Cap wants to do this with, as little harm coming to anyone, friend or foe, as possible. Whereas Wolverine is under the impression that, you got to do what you got to do. Sometimes things are getting messy. Sometimes you're not going to like how that plays out. Captain Marvel, being Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, and Black Widow play off each other quite nicely as well, in that they kind of have this rivalry later on, where, Captain Marvel's super powerful, can take a lot of hits, and Black Widow's more about outsmarting her enemy, and using her particular skill set to trump them. And there was one part later on where, she gets hurt briefly, and Captain Marvel says something about, need me to, or do you want me to give you a piggyback ride or something like that? And Black Widow says, do you want me to punch you in the face? And so it's kind of funny to just have that, sort of interaction between the two of them. I really like the way that they handled Hulk in this. It's one of those things where a lot of times I don't like Hulk as a character simply because he's sort of this just big bruiser type of guy, and you know, it's fun for action scenes, but beyond that, he's never been one of my favorite Marvel characters. But in this, he sort of has a reason to play into this too. He sort of, you know, again breaks away from what S.H.I.E.L.D. wants him to do, kind of does his own thing for the sake of helping out his Avenger friends, and the way that we see the interaction between him and Hulk and Bruce Banner, I think, is really fun in this short story. Even though it is relatively short, I think you get quite a bit out of the story in terms of the characters and the pacing of it and all that. There's also a little bit in the back here, a sort of a postscript interview with, or not necessarily interview with, but like a little spotlight on the writers and artists who worked on this, which is kind of cool. They've included that with some of the more recent releases where they had you know, interviews with the staff behind them, or just sort of a mention of, you know, who all is behind this thing. But I got this at the Grand Rapids Comic Con for $2, which is insanely inexpensive for this. It's basically a steal for that price. I think you can probably still get it for, like, you know, $7, something like that. Some places, probably maybe 10 other places, but either way, I highly recommend this. I think it's a great standalone Avengers story. It's also a really good story for sort of getting into the Avengers, which I'll admit, as much as I like the characters of the Avengers, I've almost always read them as separate stories. I've never really read the Avengers team-based stuff as much, and trying to get into some new and different things with the Marvel Comics, this was something that I was really interested in, and figured, you know, $2, why not? I'm not going to be upset if it's just sort of a subpar story, but it ended up being really great. I think of the Avengers stuff that I have right now, this one's one of my favorites, easily. And not to say that I have a lot of Avengers stuff, but of the ones that I've read so far, this one's one of my favorites. So highly recommend it if, you know, you're looking for something kind of on a whim to read, Marvel-related or Avengers-related. This one's a lot of fun and is something that, like I said, gives you quite a bit in terms of the story and the characters, but doesn't require a ton of investment in, like, going back to read a bunch of other character stories and, like, tie-in stuff like that. Because I know a lot of people get turned off by that when it comes to comic books nowadays, is that they feel like they have to read a bunch. And with this, you can sit down, read this, be done with it, and feel like, you know, you got a decent read out of the whole thing. So that's pretty much it for this review, and with that, I will see you guys next time.